Hilary Calvert joins us now. Hilary, how are you? Welcome to the show this afternoon.
Thank you. Nice to be on.
Just your front page this morning was interesting, of the Otago Daily Times. And your front page lead said that the Dunedin City Council are going to be exploring, apparently, a unitary authority. In other words, they are doing such a damn good job of being a local authority, they want to take over the regional council functions as well.
Yes.
Is it going to be a popular move, do you think, in your neck of the woods?
Well, the devil lies in the detail, because whether it's popular or unpopular will be depending on who spins what. I see on that article that the chair of the regional council has said, well, we do a lot together now. There's a lot of collaboration now. What she isn't saying is that what happens now is that there's a lot of debate backwards and forwards between the staff of both and sometimes the political leaders of both. And that just adds to the confusion and adds to the cost. So every time they talk to each other, it's just another expense to the ratepayer. For example, the buses, DCC has an abiding passion about and wants to do things like free buses for students and this, that and the other thing. And the regional council actually runs them using money from the government, half of the money from the government. And that means that they've got these committees going all over the place, DCC staff and regional council staff talking about buses all day. And the DCC knows that they've got no skin in the game. They can have all sorts of outrageous comments because they're not rating their own people about it. It's just, so the idea of the collaboration is an argument against the current situation, not for it.
I've just had Oliver Hartwich from the New Zealand Initiative on the program today. He was a speaker.
Yeah.
He was saying at the local government New Zealand forum that was held in Wellington last week, and he was promoting the virtues of localism. And he was saying, well, in actual fact, far from having bigger councils, what we need are smaller ones, because he said that will enable things to get done, although he accepted unreservedly that the way in which councils work in this country at the moment is not a very good advertisement for them, full stop, let alone getting more of them in this country. But is he right? Is he onto something when he says that localism, in other words, I guess at a place like Dunedin, having Dunedin divided up into maybe 2 or 3 separate councils would enable things to get done better, or is he on the wrong course?
Localism is, it depends on what you make local. I think that's the crucial bit of it. And we don't think that it depends what is local. So, for example, where dogs can go to a dog park or wherever they're on a leash or whatever it is, that should be really local. You don't give a toss where a dog somewhere else does. You might in your street or at the end of your street where, backs onto the rural land, you might care where the dogs come through your land to do whatever they're doing. But you really don't care even on the other side of Cromwell, personally, I would guess. But other things need to be done on a bigger basis. So I think we just get wrong the size of the area that we try and make local for different purposes. Like housing and things is somewhere between central government and probably district-wide or something. And as I say, dogs are at the other end of the spectrum, and big contracts might need to be done by big people. But it's interesting that the Honourable Pete Hodgson has just said that the building in Dunedin Hospital is too big a project for the government. God knows who he thinks it might be the right size for. We used to have a Ministry of Works that did things like that, but...
Hey, listen, we can't build a hospital in New Zealand. I mean, it's just absurd.
Yes.
But, or is the argument not that we can't build buildings like that, because clearly we can, We talked about this with Craig Stobo, interestingly, last Thursday. And his argument was, actually, believe it or not, and he says as the head of a company, Precinct Properties, I think it was, who's completed a 40-storey building in Auckland, downtown Auckland, he said, we actually do have a paucity of people with the requisite building skills of that magnitude in this country. And he was talking about the private sector. So I guess he was, to rather counterpoint what I've just said, though, he was pointing out that there may be a lack of ability to do so.
Yes, but if that's the case, what do? You're going to build airports, for example, and hospitals. So you can't just say, we're too small a country, we can't build those things. You then get the right expertise in. So if you, for instance, go to the Gold Coast, Brisbane area, they've got a hospital that looks just spookily like Dunedin's hospital, an H sort of layout. Presumably the same people built it. Wouldn't know, but quite possibly. Surely you can get somebody who does know what they're doing to build it. It's just ridiculous, the suggestion.
Yeah.
And you have to be able to. What do you do when you build a hospital or an airport?
But the other thing here was, are these big hospitals the right way to go? And that was the other interesting part about all this. Talking about localism for an issue, the locals in central Otago, but in rural New Zealand and provincial New Zealand, fear very strongly losing their local health services to make these bigger tertiary institutions, Palmerston North, Wellington, Hamilton, for example, Auckland, Christchurch, Dunedin, because there's only X amount of money and you're suddenly spending billions of dollars on building these large institutions. Nelson's another example of that. And folk in rural and provincial New Zealand saying, well, all that's going to do is all the specialist clinicians are going to head off there and we're going to have to travel 200-300 kilometres just one way to be able to access those services. And that's not a health system for us. What do you think about that?
And the cost of you travelling isn't factored in by the government.
No.
So they don't think the total cost to everybody, and then they can say, well, we'll shift the surgeons to you once a month or whatever it is. You know, that they don't look at the total cost to everybody about what would happen. But I talked to a medical person a while ago, I think he was might have been a heart surgeon or something, and he said, we've missed the boat with the Dunedin Hospital and things are changing quite rapidly as to what we require from a hospital. You know, like with libraries, it's not so much about books. With hospitals, it might be more about medical, like drugs rather than surgery. Just for example, I don't know what it's about. But he said the hospitals of the future, don't build it now for 5-10 years out because it won't be what we're going to need. We're going to need different things. And they might be more local. You know, you might be, like somebody recently said that they couldn't get chemotherapy or something in, I don't know, New Plymouth or somewhere, because they couldn't get somebody who could administer the drugs. For heaven's sake. I mean,
I had the same argument. Believe me, I tried to get, when I was on the DHB board, and it was very fortunate, well, unfortunate, but fortunate another way. My daughter had cancer, and she had to travel along with her mother to Auckland from Wanganui to get her chemotherapy. And when you got to Starship, Hilary, and saw the administration of the chemotherapy, you went, this is not a complex operation. This isn't hard to do. This was delivered.
It's an armchair and a line.
Exactly. Yeah. Oh, in this particular case, it was a lie down. She went through the port. But it's not hard to do.
For radio, and that makes sense because you're not going to have people being zapped with radiotherapy all over the place.
That's different.
Surely.
But chemo's really simple.
Surely a qualified nurse, and they can get them to district nurses to come into your home and give you end-of-life drugs.
Yeah. No. Well, the point was, I won the argument, and Wanganui started delivering chemotherapy to locals rather than having to travel to Palmerston North or Wellington or, in my daughter's case, Auckland. But it's ludicrous to argue that a place like, well, I don't know, Cromwell and a skilled nurse couldn't, in actual fact, administer chemotherapy. Of course they could. It's not a particularly complex operation.
And as regards things like there's a bus wandering around that was, I think, first bought or organised by the late Howard Patterson back in the day, him and other people, a bus that went round delivering medical services. Was it breast cancer?
Oh, yeah, breast screening or something like that, was it?